Hello, this is Movie Recap Nation, and this is the movie A Cure for Wellness. A successful yuppie arrives at a remote sanitarium where visitors are subjected to strange water treatments.
What are you doing? What are you doing?
The movie begins with a businessman working late at the office. Suddenly, he gets chest pains. He drinks water from the cooler, but a heart attack is not cured that way. The businessman drops dead in a deserted office, only his photo on the wall as the best employee of the year stares blankly at the unfolding tragedy. The train rushes through the picturesque scenery of the Swiss Alps. It takes the protagonist, an aspiring financier, on a business trip. Lockhart young man pops nicotine gum and stays on his phone doing business and making money. The trip is interrupted by flashback. Lockhart moves to a new office. The bosses appreciate him. When the young man is called upstairs, he is full of optimism. However, the board of directors shows him a strange letter from CEO Pembroke, who has gone to an alpine sanatorium, and from there sent him a notice that he is going out of business. But the thing is, his signature is crucial to the pending deal. Lockhart is sent on a business trip to find and bring the CEO to New York. In this way, he will make amends for financial fraud, otherwise he will go to jail. Before leaving, he visits his mother in a nursing home. She gives him a handmade ballerina figurine as a keepsake and says goodbye to her son. We're sure he's not coming back. On a winding road, Lockhart is driven past a village at the foot of a mountain with a sanatorium on top. The driver tells a legend that once there was a castle of a baron obsessed with blood purity. The peasants burned it down when he thought of marrying his own sister. They drive onto the property. The young businessman sees old men in white robes developing in the fresh air. Lockhart asks them to wait and himself goes to the reception area. The visit is closed for the day. And then Yappy asks to call the receptionist. Waiting for the young man, tries to call the office, but the connection here does not catch. He wanders across the green lawn, where he notices on the wall of the ancient chapel ventilating windows to the basement. Talking to the administrator, the young man notices an old photo from the sanatorium on the site of the burned castle. The doctor treats him to the local miracle water. In parallel, taking vitamins from a blue bottle, the administrator offers to visit him in the evening when Pembroke's procedures are over. The hero has no choice but to return to the car. On the way out, he notices a girl in a blue dress on the castle wall. On the way back, a natural deer crashes into the car, which leads to an accident. Lockhart loses consciousness and comes to himself already in the ward of the sanatorium. He is greeted by a cast on his leg and Dr. Heinrich Folmer. The doctor informs that he reported to the young man's superiors about the unforeseen circumstances, and he himself will have to spend a few days in the sanatorium. The main thing is to drink plenty of water to acclimatize successfully. After the conversation, Lockhart stands at the window and watches the window at the base of the chapel being patched, then drains a glass of water and notices a small spot on the glass, which turns out to be a bug. The young man wanders around the building, watching the patients under the supervision of the staff engaged in various water procedures. Soon he himself is invited to a steam bath. The sauna is full of Lockhart's steam. At some point he gets lost and finds that the passage behind him has disappeared. He finds himself in a confined room with no exit, but after a few moments he sees a corridor with a deer glimpsed at the end of it. He goes there and finds Pembroke, the purpose of his visit. The old man refuses to return to town for business. He speaks of the need to purify himself and then remembers the young man's father. They started out together before ditching him. Suddenly, the old man agrees to return home for a few days. Lockhart asks at the front desk for a cab. He waits outside, where he is approached by Mrs. Vakinsk, a big fan of mysteries. She studies the history of the place, as well as local legends. The hero sees a girl in a blue dress. Her name is Hannah, and she is a special patient. Lockhart admits that she will be leaving soon, to which she wonders, why leave here? The beautiful scenery makes the guy think about it. When Lockhart returns, he can't find Pembroke. In the lunchroom, where the patients are with Dr. Folmer, the doctor admits that he's been feeling sick after talking about work and has been sent for special procedures. The young man breaks down screaming, but suddenly his nose bleeds and he falls unconscious. Folmer examines him in the office. Lockhart, at such a young age, already needs special care. Yuppie agrees to the doctor's offer, but should he leave, the guy steals Pembroke's medical records, turning in Lockhart's urine, notices that in one test tube, in addition to the liquid, there is something foreign looking like a parasite. Lockhart is immersed in a sensory deprivation chamber. He is warned that the lack of stimuli may lead to hallucinations. Floating in the liquid, the hero remembers his childhood, but suddenly notices a multitude of acne. He tries to reach the nurse, but the nurse is distracted. Trying to surface, Lockhart loses the oxygen hose and suffocates in the water, unable to open the lid. As his pulse drops, his father's death flashes in front of him. The man stopped the car with his son right at the bridge, stepped out into the road, and leaped over the railing. The orderlies are pumping it out of Lockhart. They're examining the cell. There are no blackheads inside. In the ward, the hero reviews Pembroke's medical history and notices oddities with his jaws. He is distracted by a strange noise coming from the bathroom. The handle on the left barrel is twitching randomly. Walking over to the toilet, the young man notices workers rolling a cart with a body into the chapel. The next morning, he has a conversation with Mrs. Vakinsk. Ta says that the reason the villagers burned down the castle was because of medical experiments for which the Baron kidnapped people. Their dried corpses were found on the towers. Lockhart suspects that the Baron was looking for medicine for his wife. The lady is taken away for treatment. A young man examines the door in the tower, but he is chased away by a worker. Noticing Hannah, the hero goes to her. He asks her to give him a bicycle ride to the village, giving him in return a commemorative figure of a ballerina received from her mother just before her death. The two of them descend the mountain to the hamlet. Lockhart leaves the girl alone in the pub and himself goes to the veterinarian across the street to consult about Pembroke. The result turns out to be interesting, despite the abundance of drink in the sanitarium. The loss of teeth is due to dehydration. The doctor also completes the legend of the spouse. The Baron's sister was infertile. Every attempt to conceive resulted in the miscarriage of a deformed fetus. At the end of the conversation, the veterinarian rips open the deer's belly, who drank water from a spring in the mountains. His guts are full of live eels. At the pub, Lockhart calls the office. It turns out that the doctor didn't warn anyone about the accident. The hero wants to talk to Hannah about what's going on at the sanatorium, but she's already got the eye of a local punk. A fight ensues, which is interrupted by the appearance of Dr. Folmer. He takes the fugitives back to Hannah's room. They almost fight. A girl feels pain in her stomach, but the doctor promises to cure her. Lockhart dreams of naked Hannah in a bathtub full of live eels. He wakes up from a nightmare and sees a worker rolling an empty gurney out of the basement. At the mirror, the businessman notices a tooth wobbling and comes off easily. He goes to the waiting room to report it, but when the nurse leaves, he sees Pembroke's current location on the appointment list, the one in the transfusion wing. The hero goes there, trying not to be seen by the staff. Near the elevator is a gurney with a body. The old man lying there suddenly opens his eyes and screams. This helps distract the elevator attendants. And while they examine the screamer, Lockhart sneaks into the cabin and goes below. He finds several rooms with barrel chambers. In another room, Mrs. Watkins is lying on a gurney. She tells him that she left Lockhart some clues. It is also revealed that the Baroness was pregnant, but the mob cut the raft from her womb and threw it into the lake. The infant survived, however. Guy notices parasites under the woman's skin and recoils in horror, dropping a metal cabinet. At the noise, orderlies come running, from whom he hides behind one of the countless doors. There are numerous water tanks with people floating in them, including CEO Pembroke. In anger, Lockhart tries to break the glass, but nothing comes out. He runs up the stairs, but runs into the orderlies and Dr. Folmer. The medics drag him into the dentist's office to check on his tooth. Lockhart is fitted with clamps. Then they drill out the front tooth. Unknowingly, after getting out of the chair, the guy climbs into the car that brought the next patient and asks to be taken away urgently. They go to the police officer, where Lockhart claims illegal experiments. But when the representative of the authorities comes out, the hero sees in the closet a branded blue vial with a drug. A policeman returns to the office with Dr. Folmer, who calls Lockhart a patient suffering from hallucinations and violent behavior. Pembroke appears next, confirming that the young man has threatened him. The fact that the old man is alive throws Lockhart off balance. He doubts his own sanity and returns to the boarding house. In the morning, he sits in his room at his desk in front of Mrs. Watkins' notes. His attention is caught by a sound, the creamer knobs being pulled. Removing the lid, he sees a multitude of eels inside, but after a second they are gone, as if flushed down the drain. Lockhart breaks out the toilet bowl to check. But the blackheads never returned. The hero writes a letter to the board of directors akin to the one Pembroke wrote earlier. Then he undergoes a series of procedures, but at some point the guy breaks a glass of water and the shard cuts the cast. There's nothing wrong with his leg. It's not broken. As the doctor said, it was just a ruse. Breaking the lock, he climbs into the basement with a shovel. Inside is an underground lake and an ancient laboratory. There are many records, a deformed human fetus, and skin removed from someone's face. There is also a kind of altar with a portrait of the Baroness, who looks a lot like Hannah, only a little older. Going below, Lockhart sees a gurney with a body under the sheet of the deceased Mrs. Vakinsk. From above comes a worker, hidden. The lad witnesses the man dumping the corpse into the lake, where eels lunge at it. Between the worker and the hero, a fight ensues. Sucker Brick smashes his opponent's head and escapes. Frightened Hannah, not understanding what is happening, goes to the dining room to Dr. Folmer. Seeing the blood on her dress, the latter, in turn, rejoices. Lockhart shows up and tells her to let her go. The doctor tries to negotiate, but the young man gives a speech to the patient saying that they are being cheated and poisoned with unknown water. The old men rise from their seats, but not to protest at all. Instead, they grab the insolent young man. Lockhart is taken downstairs to the transfusion wing, where he is placed in a Baroque chamber. Folmer explains that the water in the lake allows them to live dozens of times longer than their species lives under normal conditions. But for humans it is such if not filtered beforehand, and the filters are human bodies, from which the mysterious blue medicine is vaporized. It's what keeps the local ones alive for years to come. Later, the doctor tells Hannah that she has gone from a girl to a woman. She goes to Lockhart sitting on a bench outside and returns the ballerina, saying that he had in vain encouraged her, as if she could leave here. After all, the doctor will never let her go, and the young man suddenly no longer understands why she should leave here at all. After all, it's so beautiful here. In the evening, dozens of employees of the sanatorium and the village organize a wedding ceremony for the doctor and Hannah. Folmer leads the girl to the underground lake where the laboratory is located. An altar and a bed. Here they are to conceive a child. Hannah refuses, but the man ties her up. In retaliation, the girl punches him in the face and the skin on his forehead splits. Lockhart, rubbing the ballerina in his hands, comes out of his stupor. Matching the words of the late Mrs. Watkins, he breaks the glass in the receptionist's office from a 100-year-old photograph from the days of the boarding house construction. There, a man with a bandaged head holds the hand of a little girl in a light-colored dress. Realizing that the doctor is the Baron who discovered the cure for aging, and Hannah, his hero daughter, runs into the dungeon where he spills gasoline, the Baron tries to stop him. He even removes the leather mask from his face, exposing a green burnt mess. But Lockhart sets a fire anyway. Sparks get into the ventilation system and set fire to the curtains in the hall where the nursing staff is having a ball in honor of the wedding ceremony. A fight breaks out and a man almost feeds the young man to the eels. When a girl appears. With a powerful blow, she stabs the shovel into the image of her father's face. Once out of the dungeon, Lockhart and Hannah admire the fire, with the patients continuing their dance in the background, leaving the fire-ravaged building behind. They ride away on their bicycles, but crash into a car on a curve. With board members inside, Lockhart doesn't listen to their orders. Instead, he gets back on his bike and rides away with the 200-year-old girl, walking away smiling like a lunatic. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.